Then that's everyone, right?
Sorry, I dropped off for a second.
Oh, that's okay, Matt. Glad you're back.
Hopefully my computer doesn't do that again.
So that's everyone then, right, Aaron?
Yep.
Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. Everyone, welcome to the regular Berkeley Planning Commission meeting, our last virtual meeting, unless something crazy happens again. Today is Tuesday, June 22nd. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Aaron, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Bartis,
Here, Berkley, Michigan.
Commissioner Dolan,
Here, Berkeley, Michigan.
Commissioner Kempner,
Here, Berkeley, Michigan.
Commissioner Patterson,
Here, Berkeley, Michigan.
Commissioner Richardson,
Here, Berkeley, Michigan.
Commissioner Smith,
Here, Berkeley.
Commissioner Stern, Commissioner Trotto,
Here, Berkeley, Michigan.
Chair Kaplan-Meier.
Here in Berkeley, Michigan. And we need a motion to excuse Commissioner Stern. Is that right?
Yes.
Does anyone want to make that motion?
Motion to excuse Commissioner Stern.
Thanks, Matt. I'll
Second.
second it. Okay. Aaron, could you call the roll on that?
Dolan,
Yes.
Kempner,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Trotto,
Yes.
Bartis,
Yes.
Kaplan-Meier.
Yes. Okay. That brings us to approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any changes or motions to approve?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Aaron, could you call the roll?
Commissioner Kempner,
Yes.
Commissioner Patterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Trotto,
Yes.
Commissioner Bartis,
Yes.
Commissioner Dolan,
Yes.
and Chair Kaplan-Meier.
Yes. All right, next up, we have two sets of minutes, the May 25th work session minutes and the June 1st regular meeting minutes. Let's start with the May minutes. Any changes to those?
It was on the bottom of
Or motions to approve?
So moved.
Support.
Aaron, could you call the roll?
Patterson,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Trotto,
Yes.
Bartis,
Yes.
Dolan,
Yes.
Kempner,
Yes.
Kaplan-Meier.
Yes. Okay, next we have the June 1st minutes. Any changes to those? Or motions to approve?
Motion to approve.
Thanks, Lisa.
Support.
Aaron, could you call the roll on that?
Richardson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Trotto,
Yes.
Bartis,
Yes.
Dolan,
Yes.
Kempner,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
Kaplan-Meier.
Yes. Okay, that brings us to communications. Do we have any emails or other communications, Aaron?
No, I haven't received any.
Okay. So I will move on from communications to citizen comment. If there are any members of the public who wish to speak during the appropriate agenda item, I will call for comment during those agenda items. But if there's anyone who wishes to speak now on an item not on the agenda, we ask you to please use the raise your hand feature or dial *9 if you've called in. Comments can also be submitted to planning@berkeleymish.net. A reminder that the Planning Commission will not engage you in any discussion. We ask you to state your name and address, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Is there anyone using the raise your hand feature now who wants to comment on a non-agenda item?
There's not currently.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Have we received any emails?
I have not.
Okay, then I will close the general citizen comment section. And we will move on to our first agenda item, which is the master plan. And who's taking this over? Is it you, Erin, or you, Megan?
We can throw it to Megan if you're ready.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. In your packet, you received an updated version of the draft master plan, as well as a cover memo from us. Just to remind everybody of the remaining process, what's required by state law is approval by the Planning Commission for a draft to go to City Council. City Council would then approve that draft to be released to adjacent communities and reviewing agencies for them to review. They would then have a 63-day review period. Then those comments would come back to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission holds a public hearing. Then the Planning Commission would recommend the master plan, and then to City Council, and City Council could approve. They could deny it and send it back, or they could ask for certain revisions. And at any step when it's at your door, the Planning Commission or at City Council, the draft could be revised. We did have a steering committee meeting in between this meeting and your last meeting. And the steering committee approved the master plan draft overall, except for the language about duplexes. There were some differing opinions about the language that was in the draft that was presented to them, and that stayed the same in this draft. Some felt that there needed to be some guideposts, and some felt that the language was fine as is. Based on that discussion that the steering committee had, those who felt guideposts should be included suggested the following things: that duplexes should have street frontage on adjacent or be adjacent to a high traffic corridor or road. And we took those adjacent locations to mean that they shared a rear lot line with the properties that fronted that high traffic road or corridor. That they would be located at the edges of neighborhoods, that duplexes would serve as a transitional land use between single family neighborhoods and uses that were more intense, such as office, commercial, or multifamily. That the parcels would be considered for duplexes would be of a size to accommodate all the parking and other regulations for the city and zoning ordinance on site. And that a rezoning, it was suggested that a rezoning to R2, two-family zoning district, or RM, multiple family residential zoning district, would be the mechanism to allow it to use duplexes in those areas that are planned as single-family neighborhoods. Tonight, in your discussion, we would appreciate input on some of the following questions. Number one, should those guideposts be added for duplexes be added to the master plan? If so, we would want to hear input from you and direction from you on what language should be made, and we cited some sections that would need to be changed. If changes are needed, what would those guideposts be? And then really also aside from that discussion, wherever that lands, what changes are needed in order, if any, in order for you to feel comfortable for this to go to City Council, for them to do that review, to see whether they would approve it to be released to adjacent communities. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but at this point would appreciate guidance on the duplexes, and also where you feel procedurally you're comfortable in going, whether there needs to be some changes and you see a draft again, or whether you would recommend it with some conditions, or whether you would recommend the draft as is to City Council.
Thanks, Megan. So just to be crystal clear, really duplexes is this last remaining thing that's kind of outstanding. if anyone has any other comments, I'm sure you welcome them if they're substantive here at the meeting. Otherwise, email them to you.
Yes.
Okay. So we have several members of the public on this meeting, and I want to give those people a chance to address the Planning Commission on this issue. The same parameters that applied in citizen comment would apply here, 3 minutes or less. Please state your name and address, and we will not engage you in any discussion, but we'll pick up and continue our discussion after the members of the public have had a chance to comment. So Aaron, I will turn it over to you to call on. I see that Mr. Height has his hand raised. I don't know if there's going to be anyone else that wants to comment, so I'll kind of let you call on people.
Okay, we'll just go in the order of the hands being raised. So we'll start with Kurt Height. I will say that we will be timing you for the 3 minutes, and we would appreciate to make sure that everyone has their time to speak and be respectful of the process here. So with that, go ahead, Kurt.
Okay, Kurt Height, 3525 Robina. First of all, as far as the changes that Megan has written on there, I think that would be a good meet in the middle kind of way, because technically I'm really kind of against duplexes in the single family residential areas, but I'm not against compromise. That being said, I just wanted to take back to 2016, back when we went through a master plan or the future land use amendment process. There were several times where some former council or planning commissioners, 2 of which are still on this board, had mentioned that, part of the issue was that nobody ever came to the meetings, or maybe they didn't get enough input. And I think with regards to this master plan, which I think is a pretty good document overall, I think we really need to pay attention to everything. If it's a question of whether or not to include Megan's changes or not, or just taking duplexes out completely, one of the 3, I would hope that it's either adding the changes that she put in there or just removing duplexes mentioned in single family residential, because when it comes to input, all the input, the more often you get input and the more people you get input from, the more often it seems to show that people are against multifamily in the single family residential. It's only when you come down to where it's only 50 people or 60 people, because there's a certain number of people that are always active. And it's only when, and the more times you're asking people to give input, the less results you get every time. And that's just it. But back to my original, what I was saying is, back then they said, we wish people had showed up and we would have known more what they wanted. Well, the information is there now. People have said repeatedly that they didn't want multifamily in the single family residential. And not only in the survey that we did in 2017, but the first survey we did for the master plan steering committee, the second one, the majority of people were against it. The third one is kind of sketchy because of how it was handled, but that being said, less people were involved in that one. And I just hope that if you guys still include it, that you include it with their changes, because I think that would protect the interests of all involved as well as possible, and it'd be a compromise. But if you're not going to include those changes, I would hope that it's just removed. Thank you. The duplexes are removed, is what I'm saying. Mention of them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I see Mr. Josh Hunter has his hand raised. So again, 3 minutes. Thank you. You're still on mute, Josh.
Yeah, thank you. Yep. My name is Joshua Hunter, resident 2240 Thomas. And my questions and comments are regarding the duplexes in the single family neighborhood from the May 25th draft master plan. As Chairman Kaplansky, as you're well aware, housing and single family residential in the current 2007 master plan and the single family zoning ordinance is strictly single family detached dwellings. The text I read in the draft master plan would change that, though. In the single family section, it says the following land uses may be added in the future to the zoning districts associated with this category: accessory dwelling units, duplexes, and existing locations with consideration to changing zoning in the future to allow additional duplexes. So this reminds me of the 2015 residential master plan amendment, which was the basis for the 2016 form-based code zoning ordinance. The 2015 amendment was much more intensive, as it recommended 4-unit dwellings and townhouses in the single family zoning districts. But this draft is still just as broad, since it proposes allowing duplexes in the future through zoning updates within single family. And based on what I heard from the May meeting, I don't think that was the intention. Some of the opinions I heard were how, it shouldn't be on certain residential roads, including Catalpa. Another, that it should be a transitional buffer for more intense uses. And it was also mentioned that duplexes in single family require more study and shouldn't be part of this plan, but could be considered in a future master plan amendment. But then no recommendations were made to actually change this text. The discussion was more around the map that would limit the scope of where they would be allowed in single families. So, but I mean, if this plan were adopted as written and the city updated the single family zoning ordinance to include duplexes anywhere in the residential zoning districts, that would be entirely consistent with this plan. So, I mean, the city couldn't have an ordinance like that today because it would be inconsistent with the 2007 master plan. So I think if it's not the intention to allow them everywhere through updated zoning, then the text needs to be changed or removed. And personally, I'm really more interested in accessory dwelling units. I think what you have in there is a really innovative change for homeowners with much broader support. So I think that's where the focus should be. But I see the recommendations from the steering committee are on the agenda, so I hope those are discussed tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Don't see any other hand raised, and I did not receive any emails.
Okay, so then we will go ahead and close the citizen comment on this particular agenda item. We do have a couple other agenda items that will be available for people to comment on if they want to a little bit later in the agenda. So why don't we dive right in and tackle Megan's question. I know you mentioned specific pages that would have to be updated, and I scanned through those, but I think the larger question is whether or not, and feel free to take this over whenever you want, Megan, but the larger question is, first of all, whether we want to continue with duplexes as right now, as identified in the master plan. And then secondly, if we do want to keep that component in the master plan, do we want to look at some of the parameters that the steering committee has thrown out as potential options? Just to kind of start off the discussion, I think everyone knows where I fall on duplexes. I am in favor of duplexes. The parameters that have been thrown out, I think, could make a lot of sense in some cases. My concern is that we have not had the opportunity to see how these parameters would affect specific properties and where those properties might lay out if these parameters were in place within the city. They do seem like they fit better in a zoning ordinance amendment. I would not be in favor of having duplexes just allowed across the board without any conditions attached. I do think when we look at something like this in the zoning ordinance, we would have to include some of these things. Personally, I'm not prepared to decide which of those things to include now. I think that needs some additional study, additional consideration. We need to look at parcel sizes and different components like that that are throughout the city that we just don't have time to tackle with such specificity right now as part of the master plan. I would be fine including some text that says, further study is needed before these are added to the zoning ordinance. Potential conditions or regulations that may accompany these may include, and then listing out the specific things that were suggested by the steering committee. I would be totally fine with that. I would be, me personally, against deciding right now which of these should be included, because I think that needs a lot of additional study before we're ready to jump into that. So I just kind of threw my opinion out there as a starting point for the discussion, but does anyone have a differing opinion, share that opinion, want to take duplexes out completely? Who wants to go after me?
I can go.
Okay, go ahead, Lisa.
I
I like your idea of wording, because when I look at these, there's some I'm like, is that necessary? I don't know if that's necessary, but I do feel like there needs to be some level of conditions. So I like that wording after a study, these may apply. Sounds good to me.
I'll set my opinion in here. I was never in favor of duplexes in the single family areas. So I kind of still stand by that stance, but I've kind of let it go as we've gone through this.
Thanks, Matt.
I can go next, I guess. I'm kind of with both of you, Lisa and Kristen, or Chair Kaplansky. I don't think that we should just be putting them in every parcel. I think we do need to study more and look more. I like the wording. I think we have some now, some duplexes that we did on our walk that fit perfect in our neighborhoods. I mean, they're not, they work, right? To be honest, I didn't even notice they were there until I took the time to slow down and walk next to them instead of driving by them. They're in my neighborhoods almost. They're a few blocks away. So I think with the right conditions and location, I think they can work for Berkeley, for our residents to get, mixed populations in. Some people who maybe don't want the upkeep of a large home or a two-story home. I think the duplexes would work for us. But I don't think that they should be on every parcel in Berkeley either. So kind of the mix between both.
Okay, I guess I can.
Go ahead, Mike.
So I am on the steering committee, and I did support the inclusion of guidepost language in the master plan draft. If it were up to me personally, and I was the only decision maker, I wouldn't have a problem allowing duplexes in the single family district at all. I'm a proponent of them because I'm a proponent of diversifying housing choice, recognizing the changing demographics. I think we need to be on top of the housing issue to remain a community that's in the forefront of communities here in Southeast Michigan. But I'm not the sole decision maker, and I did go along with the idea of guideposts, and I still do. I feel as if suggesting some of the controls that the factors you'd consider before allowing duplexes is appropriate for a master plan. And I think the inclusion of the mentioning of the idea of rezoning a given area that's proposed, or a given parcel that's proposed for duplex is important. And of course, the rezoning process is a separate process and a more stringent process in many ways than what we're doing. So, I do think it's appropriate for us as a planning commission to take the concerns of people in the community about this kind of change into account. I think this is an appropriate way to do it. I wouldn't interpret these guideposts as more than the kinds of principles you find in other sections of the plan. I don't think they're a substitute for the formal rezoning process. And to be honest, is there going to be a wave of duplexes descending on us here? There never has yet. I just don't I don't see this as being it may be a hot button issue while it's on our desks, but in the real world, I don't think it's going to be posing too many problems for the community at large. So I would support, in essence, what the chair had said about mentioning factors, but not tying ourselves rigidly to those factors in this document. And I think the factors are appropriate factors to take into account in approving duplexes. So that's what I have to say about it.
Ms. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm looking at pages 28 and 29. 28 under the heading what? It's at the bottom of the page, says duplexes in existing locations, in existing locations with, these are anticipated to continue with considerations to changing zoning in the future to allow additional locations. That's existing locations. You go to the next page, 29 at the top, under the heading how, says consider whether additional duplexes could be integrated into single family neighborhoods. Now, I assume that's the statement everybody's talking about, correct?
Yeah, I think that's one of them. There were a couple of pages.
Are there a couple
listed,
more
but
throughout? I'm shuffling through my pages trying to find the others, but that's the one I found.
I think that's the one though that kind of lays the groundwork. It seems to be like where those types of things would fit in.
Sure.
Those dimensions.
Now, the key word there is consider. Now, this is a master plan. The key word's consider. In fact, above it says update zoning to allow accessory. I'd like to use the word consider there instead of update. These are things that the master plan says, hey, let's look at these things. They may or may not be appropriate. So, but under duplexes, I don't have a issue adding some parameters. We talked about guideposts or whatever you want to call them in that location, but I don't want to get too detailed because at this point, the master plan is saying, hey, let's consider this. We're not saying where, at least on page 29, and correct me if there's another one, like I said, I couldn't find some more. So I have no problem leaving the language in. If you want to add some guideposts, I have no problem with that. But I don't think we want to delete it because it's something to consider and we can argue it when it comes under zoning. Oh, I'm done.
Thanks. Commissioner Bartis?
Yeah, are we just going around on this? I mean, I'm also on the steering team, so at that meeting as well, I do feel the language is fine the way it is in the master plan. I don't think the guideposts are necessary. Is my thought, and if they were to be added, it's fine. I guess it's a more conservative approach. The only question I have on guideposts is if they're so open anyways, like the first two to me are can be interpreted in many different ways. Like, are they truly then going to be guideposts? Because how do you define an edge of a neighborhood? And then how do you define a high traffic corridor? Because that means a lot of different things to different people. So, but like I stated, I'm comfortable with the language as it is in there actually, so.
And that's part of the reason why I think the more appropriate place for these is the zoning ordinance, because you're completely right. One person's high traffic corridor is another person's potential, residential street, if they're the ones that live on it. So we would really have to be looking at this carefully and very specifically. And that's something I think we would do as part of a zoning ordinance amendment if we wanted to pursue that. Suggesting that those are things that we could look at, I kind of am with everyone else. That's fine. I mean, we can have then in there as suggestions of potential options to consider. But you're absolutely right, Joe, that these would not be specific enough to base a zoning ordinance off of without having more study. Commissioner Dolan, I don't think we've heard from you, and I want to give everyone a chance.
Yep, I agree with Joe and many of the others. I don't have anything generally against duplexes. I don't have anything against adding some guideposts in, leaving it somewhat generic, I guess, in the master plan makes sense to me, as it, should be not nailed down completely. That's something that the zoning ordinance needs to do.
Okay, I think that's everyone. Megan, do you have good direction from us?
Yeah, I have good direction, but let me repeat it back so that I make sure that we can all understand that we're on the same page. So really, what the language that would be added in these areas would be that further, and especially under the how on page 29, is that further study is needed to evaluate whether additional duplexes would be integrated into single family neighborhoods. Potential issues that would be considered are duplexes are that list that I listed off earlier. And then we had flagged some areas, 28 and 29. There's some 46 and 47 does mention duplexes and kind of what zoning change. And then you would have something like this on the implementation table, which is 77 to 78. So really, we think that there would be 3 text changes in the draft that you have.
So instead of saying these items would be considered, could it be could be considered?
Could be considered, yes.
Does anyone else have anything based on Megan's comments?
Well, I think is implied in her comment, but I like the word relevant. I mean, among the relevant factors are edge of neighborhood, proximity to high traffic street, and the rest of them.
Okay. I think then, thank you for talking that out and coming to a decision and giving direction. Then I think the second question is, are there any other changes that you feel are needed before recommending this to the city council? And again, remember, it's a release to adjacent communities.
Can I give one more brief little statement on what we were discussing on the parameters?
Sure, yeah.
Can we find like maybe even higher traffic street instead of a high traffic street? I feel like that's going to be one of those sticking point statements in the future, maybe. So
yeah,
just thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
I just had a couple of quick questions, if it's okay.
It's okay with me. It's okay with the chair.
Yeah, I'll just turn it over to you, Megan. Go ahead.
Okay, great.
Very sorry. I don't have the draft in front of me, forgive me, but I made a note, page 31, in the right-hand column. I think that page discusses low density multifamily, and the language in there says that this district will be considered for duplexes. Well, aren't duplexes already allowed in a low density multifamily district?
Under the what, it says the following land uses are anticipated to continue in low density multiple family areas: single family homes, duplexes, 2-story multiple families, buildings with similar design as surrounding area, home-based business, utilities. The following land uses may be added, accessory dwelling units, and yeah, then it says duplexes and so duplexes in existing locations. So you're right, Marty. We should take off. That last that sentence.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And then the other quick question on page 47. There's a couple paragraphs there where that are headed housing choices, that they both say housing choices. I found that a little confusing. Can you straighten that out? If it has to be straightened out.
Oh, no, thank you. That should have been, the second one should be aging in place.
Aging in place.
So that was, I apologize.
And your most aged member brought that to your attention. I find some joy in that fact. Okay, that's all I had.
Okay, thank you.
If I may go, this is Marty.
Sure.
I think the graphics, I'm having trouble talking tonight. The graphics have been improved immensely since last month, so that's good. And the discussion, we had a discussion regarding the section on zoning versus master plan, what they are, has been vastly improved too. So I'm going to go through these pages, and I'm flipping these large sheets. See if I have any other comments here. We talked about duplexes. Bear with me.
Happy to do
Potential-
so.
Pardon me?
Happy to do so.
Oh, page 37. Potential corridor expansion transitional buffer.
Yep.
Don't you have any good looking graphics, drawings, photos of what we're trying? I think along behind 12 Mile, north and south. I know there's one later on in the transition in the page 54. There's a SketchUp rendering. I think it'd be good if you have the space. You may not get a couple examples in here, because here's what where you talk about it. And we have an aerial photograph which really doesn't tell us much. Well, let's talk about the shallow lots. But I think that's going to be a hot button in the future. It has been in the past, and I mentioned this before. It's not new news. But I think it'd be a good idea to have some renderings or something, much like the one on page 54, of what we mean by those. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
And
Okay.
some of these are nitpicky. I'll just send them to you like we've been typically doing. So
Thank you.
yeah, I don't belabor the point. Bear with me. I'm going. That might be it. I think I think it's been improved immensely. Obviously there's a lot of other stuff we'd like to add to it, but I think for what we're trying to do, those are the main comments I have, and I think we're getting there. So thank you. That's all I'm happy so far. I think we can send it on.
All right, so we can send it on with the additions that you've talked about, and we had a couple of small edits that were given, and then changing of that and adding some language around duplexes. Did anybody else have any other things that they wanted to felt that needed to change before it would be recommended to council?
I have one thing.
I do too, so I'll go next.
Go ahead. Are you sure, Greg?
Yeah, no, you first,
Okay.
please.
It was a quick question, kind of piggybacking on Marty's comments. Did we take off, and maybe I'm just not remembering correctly, but I thought we had the potential corridor expansion along 11 Mile as well.
It was added back in.
So I'm
It should have
looking,
been.
yeah, I'm looking at the future land use map, and it does not look like it's there.
Page 26.
Yeah, no, it's just I have it so that I can see the whole page. Where we had it on 11 Mile was very, very small. In the original, it's really only, but looking at it, I don't see that. So I'll make sure of that.
Okay.
That should have been back in.
Yeah, this map is smaller than the last time, so it's hard to
Yeah,
see.
and one of the things that we're trying to do is to figure out how to maybe make that an 11 by 17 that folds out, or spreading it across. We just need to import the graphic in a different way, and with the quick turnaround between the steering committee and getting a draft to you, there wasn't time to. We just couldn't get that technical part to work. So,
It'd
thank
be
you.
nice to make that map a whole page. I think that was what you had last time. It was a lot easier to read.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know how that gums up everything else. So
Well, that's our challenge to fix.
okay.
And if we can have a little, I think we'll have a bigger window to fix it this time.
So my comment was on the same for the buffering zones. I know we've talked about this and keep going back and forth on the Woodward district from 11 to Harvard, Oxford, Harvard. Are we staying with those or not? I know that we've put them in, we've taken them out, we put them back in. And they look like they're in this draft. So are they staying at the consensus of the board or the commission?
The consensus of the board last time, and you all went through, was that they should be shown for every single corridor where we had them in that original draft.
All right. Okay. I didn't take
Yeah.
tallies when we went through, so I was just it was my only thing that I was still worried about. So it's fine if everyone else had their voice.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Any other comments from planning commissioners? So then the question is, would you like to see this draft again? Or do you feel comfortable giving us direction to make these changes and recommending it to council? Again, remember, you'll see this back for public hearing and you'll have the opportunity to make changes during, when it's at public hearing and also when you recommend it to council for final approval. So this is not your last bite at the apple.
So personally,
think
I think that there's just a few little changes, right? I don't think they're huge. I would be fine it going to council instead of coming back to us.
I was going to say something very similar, that I think we're almost there and council may have some comments. So, you know, obviously there's going to be, it's still a draft, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So council will probably have some comments if they read it. And so, yeah, as long as we have an opportunity to take it in again and absorb it, there may be a few more, but I think we're ready to pass it along, in my opinion, with the items we talked about this evening.
All right. Well, if that's the desire of the group, what you would need is a formal motion to recommend it with the changes that you've discussed. And so I'll turn it back to your chair to go through that vote would probably be most appropriate. Does anyone want to make that motion?
I can make that motion.
Okay, Commissioner Smith.
I'll make a motion to recommend to City Council what am I making a motion on? Recommend to forward this to City Council and release for public comment. Is that the motion?
For release for review by adjacent communities and reviewing agencies.
That's what I meant to say. With the thank you. How did you know? With the comments added in that we talked about this evening.
Word.
I'm not going to list them. I think everybody knows what they are.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any amendments to the motion? Aaron, could you please call the roll?
Smith?
Is that me?
Yes.
Yes.
Trotto?
Yes.
Bartis?
Yes.
Dahlin?
Yes.
Kempner?
Yes.
Patterson?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Kapelansky?
Yes. Okay, thank you for all your hard work on this, Megan. It looks really great. And we're looking forward to actually having this officially adopted.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure to work with your staff, with you and with the steering committee. And really want to deeply thank all the people who put a lot of time into this and also who helped us through a tremendous pivot.
And thank you
I'd
for all your hard work. I
express our thanks
reiterate.
to Megan and to Ben and to the Master Plan Steering Committee for all of their hard work, for all of the people who came out. It's been wonderful.
Okay. So we will move on. We have a couple other items on the agenda tonight. Next being uses in the downtown district. And just to clarify, Aaron, this would be to move forward if the commission so chooses with the text to set a public hearing, correct?
Correct. So thank you all. This item comes back to you. We've discussed it a couple of times. And so The changes that I made from the last time, you'll see the draft language here for definitions as well as the entertainment establishments. So we removed the language related to active and passive uses that was noted in the entertainment establishments definition that had caused some confusion or uncertainty as to what we were really trying to regulate there. So we just removed it completely. And then clarified entertainment establishments and removed that activity that was left there in error. So this is largely the same as you had looked at it last time. I thank you for coming to the work session last month to go over this in more detail. So as Chair Kaplansky said, if the commission is ready to move forward, we would set a public hearing for the next meeting and make a recommendation to council.
Okay, so this looked pretty straightforward to me. Does anyone have changes to this or questions? Are there any members of the public who want to comment on this item? Okay, I don't see anyone. We haven't received any emails, right, Erin?
I double check, but nope, my computer hasn't dinged. So
Okay, I don't have any comments on this. I think this looks ready to move forward. No one else, it looks like. Okay. All right, so that was easy.
Setting the public hearing then?
Yes.
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 Okay. Fabulous. That was easy.
And it seems like we have an even easier one next with projections.
Yep.
So that's the same situation, right? You're looking for our okay to go ahead and move forward with the public hearing?
Yep. This was the item that came to you that I brought to you last time at the work session, just that minor note of clarification of the last sentence in the first paragraph, the total of all projections into a required setback shall not exceed the 30%. So it doesn't limit any projections into any yard at any time. It is just specific to those into the setback, and that'll make things a little bit easier on our end.
Okay. Any comments on this one from the group?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
on the ordinance sheet, there's a couple things in red here. The projections without foundations and projections with foundations. It seems to be redundant. The two red underlined sections. Why do these need to be suggested? I think it's pretty well covered in the first paragraph.
Well, those were the changes. I included that from the ordinance. You're looking at TO-01-21.
No, yes, I am at the top of the sheet.
That was the ordinance that was passed the last time around.
Okay, then I blew by it last time. It just seems a little redundant.
That's okay.
It's not hurting
We're here.
anything.
No, I
Yeah.
mean, we're here if you want to make any other changes.
And I'd like to hear what the other planning commissioners say, but I think you pretty much sum it up in the first paragraph. But it just seems redundant. And like I said, I blew by it last time, but I don't have a problem with it being in. It just seems like we say the same thing a couple of times. So I'd like to hear what everyone else has to say about it.
The reason this came to you with the projections, and then we clarified with foundations, without foundations, was because there were instances where a previous building official had made an interpretation that any type of fireplace, whether it was a masonry fireplace or one of the more popular now in the new construction, the cantilever type box, and it wasn't counting those as a projection, wasn't counting that as any kind of anything. So a projection could still have a second story cantilever with this included. And so we brought this to you for clarification on that point. But if we're here, we're looking at it. So if there are changes or any other suggestions that you want to amend here, now's the time to do it, so we don't have to bring it back again.
Did these two sentences clear it up for the inspector that was questioning?
Yep.
Well, then, okay, good. Then it's done. Never mind. If that worked for him, then let's leave it. I don't care. It just seemed redundant. That's all. But I'm good with it. No other comments.
Are there any members of the public who wanted to comment on projections? Okay. Then I think this one's ready too.
All right, I will set the public hearing, and that'll be, so we'll have 2 public hearings at the next Planning Commission meeting. Okay.
And then lastly, we have our annual report.
Yep, so this is the Michigan Planning Enabling Act requires the Planning Commission to prepare an annual report documenting all of the operations and the status of all planning activities that have taken place during the past year. Now, given that we as a city are on the fiscal year, you will get this every year around the June, July timeframe, so that way it goes to City Council in July. Usually the report has been pretty bare, and it just kind of goes through the site plans, the special land use, the zoning amendments, which is all included here. It's the base requirement. So we reviewed 3 site plans, 1 special land use, and 7 zoning text amendments. So we've been busy in the past fiscal year. So I gave you the kind of the update, and certainly all of the updates are compiled and put together with you, including next steps during the monthly reports that I send to you each month, letting you know how those projects are progressing through the building department process. It also went through all the zoning text amendments that we've done and codified, so that'll make things easier. This year, I wanted to go a little bit further and give a little bit more depth into the annual report and certainly the work plan. So I gave an update on the master plan process as it has been moving forward, an update on the steering committee who was involved, all of the methods of community engagement that we've done, as well as an adoption timeline. So you'll see that at the bottom of page 4. And this timeline was based on the hope and the anticipation that this Planning Commission would recommend this to City Council this evening. So we're right on the timeline that I have in here. So that's wonderful. I'm happy about that. And then the next steps. So what we're going to be doing after the master plan is done and adopted, and that's to go through our zoning ordinance and make sure that all of our ordinances are updated and reflect the goals and objectives of the master plan. And now outside of that, I wanted to give a little bit of a update on some of the things that happened in the community development department as a whole. Permits and inspections that were done over not only the fiscal year 2020, but looking back at past years as well. I went back to fiscal year 2017 just for reference and for fun. I also included a table of the number of inspections that took place this past year, and those are categorized by the building, mechanical, plumbing, and trades. Then we went over our code enforcement. Now this one doesn't get a whole lot, this department doesn't get a whole lot of airtime, just because normally they're addressing the problems and they get things closed. But I thought it was interesting to provide some context as to how much work our code enforcement officer has been doing over the past fiscal year. So 772 enforcements were logged in BSNA, 664 have been closed. This would equate to an 86% success compliance rate, as well as provided a table of the most common complaints and enforcement actions that are taking place. Just thought this was a fun, interesting way of knowing what are the common issues here in our community. Also wanted to highlight some of the accomplishments that the Community Development Department Planning Commission has been going through over the past year. So we transitioned to the work from home, we did the outdoor dining, master plan community engagement, and we couldn't have done that without all the assistance of the steering committee and without planning commission. So we thank you for that. Updated the planning and permit application packets. You haven't seen too many of those applications come forward to the planning commission, but we did update the site plan, special land use, rezoning applications. And so when they do come before you, it's a much easier document to read. We've updated our fee schedule to reflect some of the changing costs and the increase in reviews that are being done with some of our newer establishments, such as Farina's or the La Salette project, just to make sure that we're recouping our fees appropriately. And City Council approved that at the beginning of June. We also updated our business license application and the creation of the how to open a business brochure and land use matrix. Now, this is something we've been working on with the communications department for quite some time. And this will make things much, much easier, hopefully, for any person who's coming into the city who wants to open up a business, whether they're going to do a facade change and go through a DDA facade grant, or whether they're just want to move into their business and do some interior renovations. And this will hopefully make things easier. This will be updated. I wish I could give it to you now, but it's not quite finished, not quite polished. This will be launched and go live hopefully next week. And when it does, I'm going to send it all to you because we're very excited about this presentation and all the steps in the application. It's really, really fun tool for everyone to use. Excuse me. And finally, we put together a 2021 work plan. And that will pretty much go into effect now. So we want to continue with our work and adopt the master plan, continue working through the redevelopment ready community certification. A lot of the, two of the biggest hurdles for that certification is the master plan adoption and an updated ordinance. So we'll be working on those two long-term things. But as I note, there are a lot of other city administrative tasks that we've been doing behind the scenes, updating the permit applications, creating flow charts, putting everything on the website, developing a tracker for planning commission and ZBA trainings and such. So a lot of the things that the RRC is pushing are things that we're doing behind the scenes that don't get a lot of airtime. But hopefully by the time the master plan is adopted, the zoning ordinance is updated, we'll be ready to go. We won't have any other hurdles to move through. So we're going to go through a zoning ordinance technical review, and then also a sign ordinance rewrite, and get to the DDA guidelines and overlay district. So those are the things that we're working through with city departments, not only the community development department, but communications, IT, and the DDA. So we're very excited about all the new things that are coming, and certainly there's projects that we haven't thought of yet and things that we haven't even begun to work on. So we're excited for the next year. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So Aaron, the zoning ordinance technical review, the sign ordinance rewrite, and then obviously whatever's left for the RRC, those seem like really big items. I would like to see the guidelines prioritize the DDA guidelines. And then we're obviously in the works with the adoption of the master plan. But do you think we can get through all of those items in the year? That it just seems like a lot.
I think we can start those.
Okay.
This is kind of, it's not no different than in the 2020 fiscal year work plan was the adopt the master plan. And I mean, things got a little skewed there, but this is just where we want to start. So, and the 1 through 5 was not meant in any kind of chronological priority order. It's just things we're working on. So yes, the DDA guidelines, the overlay district is the next big thing we're tackling, along with the redevelopment ready community certification. And then the zoning ordinance and the sign ordinance rewrite won't be able to be really dove into until the master plan is adopted. So these are things that we will be working on. And the sign ordinance rewrite will be working closely with the city attorney. So there's going to be a lot of communication and coordination between our two offices to make sure that that's right and complies with current case law and litigation.
Okay, I'm glad to hear we don't have to complete all of those in the next year.
No, these are just goals and where we, kind of keeping our department, keeping me on a path forward.
Otherwise, the report I thought was really comprehensive. Nice job.
Excuse me, I need to butt in here and I want to apologize. I have to leave here at 8 o'clock for a family issue. So see everybody next month in person. Do you have to take a vote on letting me, do you have to take a vote on letting me leave or not, or what?
Thank you for joining us for most of the night.
Okay.
Marty.
Yeah, I have to
Hi,
go.
Marty.
So see you next time in person. Take care, everybody.
Hi, Marty.
Okay. Any other comments on the annual report?
I just want to echo that I think it was really well done. I think it was interesting, right? It wasn't a huge, crazy wall of text. There, it was just bullet pointed enough that it was interesting, and yeah, thumbs up.
I agree with that. I thought it was, you guys do a lot. I don't think you get the credit for it, Aaron. So I appreciate what you do behind the scenes for us. But it's amazing how much you and your department really do. I don't think a lot of people take a second. I really thought the numbers were, astonishing how much you guys, how busy you are, more than just an hour meeting once a month with us. So thank you for all you do.
Okay, so now we're on to liaison reports. Does anyone have anything? Oh, go ahead,
Yeah,
Erin.
we need a
Do we have to
motion
adopt
to-
that?
We need to send it to council, so a recommendation to send it to council.
I
Okay,
can make a recommendation to send the annual 2020 annual planning report and 2021 work plan to council for approval. I don't know what they do.
We just
it.
review it. You're
Oh,
just
for
giving
review.
them an
For
update.
review. For review.
Support.
do you call the roll on that, Erin?
Prado,
Yes.
Bartis,
Yes.
Dahlin,
Yes.
Kempner,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
I've had to leave, and Kapelansky.
Yes. Okay, now liaison reports.
I will admit I was bad and missed the DDA meeting this month, so.
That's all right, Matt.
Mhm.
Anything
Nothing
from
new from
environmental, Mark?
Nothing new from us. We meet every other month at present, so we will meet in July.
Lisa, anything from the steering committee that is in addition to tonight's? No?
You've seen everything we've done lately.
Okay. So I think that's everything then, all the liaison reports. So that brings us to staff and commissioner comments. Does anyone have any comments?
Aaron, is tonight my last meeting?
Yes, it is.
I guess I'm officially stepping down, and tonight is my last meeting. I've learned a lot and it's been fun. I was enjoying working with everybody, but unfortunately, I have too many other things that are impacting this. And I don't feel I'm putting as much effort as I should into this planning commission. So I've decided to step down. So I will not be at the next meeting. So I apologize. We'll be able to see you guys all in person finally.
Thank you so much, Matt, for volunteering to be part of this board.
And I might volunteer again for something else. I don't know. We'll see what happens. If I get more time available, I might be able to.
Thank you. And I'm sure that we'll see you around town. At least I know I will see you at various
Oh, yeah.
events and activities.
Mhm.
So thanks again for your time. It was nice to work with you, and I'm sure everyone would share that comment.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I've learned a lot talking with you, Matt, and I do appreciate your community spirit, and I'm sure we haven't heard the last from you.
Oh no, I'll be around.
It's been wonderful collaborating with you, Matt. I hope to work with you again soon.
Thank you.
Okay,
Can I ask a quick question?
sure.
Okay, sure. So with the first meeting being in person, do we still just get everything electronically since I haven't been to a meeting yet in person? And can I get it electronically and bring my laptop or I just want to be prepared. If you're sending something out, then I can wait and understand. But I just thought I'd ask now.
Yeah, that is crazy, Joe, that we haven't actually met you.
Joe and Shiloh and
That's a good
Julie.
question.
Yeah.
Question.
We can talk a little bit more offline and I can address any questions that you have a little bit more in depth if you like, but typically the packet materials that you've been getting electronically is the way that I give them. If you want a hard copy of anything, and certainly the larger site plans, a couple of the planning commissioners have requested them in hard copy form. I can give those to you. If you want everything in a hard copy printed packet, I can. But we're trying to transition into more of an electronic format. At this time, we don't have any additional laptops or extra laptops for every commissioner to have. So if that's something that you want to bring with you, there are power cords capabilities. We have Wi-Fi at City Hall for you to look at everything there. We do encourage developers and projects that are coming before you, if they want to do a presentation, there is a projector on the wall for you to look at and see everything up on a bigger screen. However, it's kind of on the side of the wall, so depending on where you're sitting, it might be a little bit more difficult, but we do encourage them to do.
And I'm sure you'll send out an email for this, Aaron, before the meeting, but is there anything else we have to know that is any kind of like special circumstance?
Right, and I have notes here, so I'll just kind of dive into that. So yeah, we are returning to in-person meetings effective July 1. So your first in-person planning commission meeting will be the end of next month. We're very excited about it. IT and communications are exploring hybrid options right now to kind of minimize the number of people that are in the room. This will not apply to planning commissioners or any other members of any board. You still will need to attend in person. I did send an email to everyone kind of noting that we're going to be returning to in person. Masks are not required, but are highly encouraged. We will not have any kind of partition or anything between the seats. We don't have that, but we are encouraging members of the public who want to attend to still do everything in the virtual space. So they're working on having a TV screen or a laptop there where they can still engage with you, but from the comfort of their own home. Unfortunately, the OMA does not allow for the Planning Commission, City Council, ZBA, or any other board to do that remotely anymore after June 30th. There'll be more communications as we go through this, but if you have specific questions, I'm more than happy to answer any of them either now or later on next week, the week after, as we get a little bit closer.
So there is not a Berkeley master plan meeting next on the 6th, right?
No.
Right, makes sense.
We do have a new member with us. We had City Council made their appointments at the regular meeting last night. So very happy to announce that Greg Patterson and Marty Smith will continue to serve as the Planning Commission. As we said before, we're very sad that Matt Trotto has not requested to be reappointed, but we thank him for his service, absolutely. New member, Daniel Petrosky, he's actually here this evening. Will be joining us as a full member next month. We'll be scheduling a welcome chat with him in the coming weeks and getting him all up to speed on where we are in certain projects and the orientation materials and the training that needs to happen and all that stuff. So that email will be forthcoming to you, to Mr. Petrosky. And finally, I just want to thank everyone for being with us and staying with us throughout the COVID, the hybrid, the virtual meetings, the work sessions that we've done, all of the hard work that you've put in and making these changes and making it seem so effortless. So I want to thank everyone for hanging in there with us and really working with us throughout this past year. Thank you to Stan and Tori and Dan and all of the communications IT and CMNtv for working with us as well and keeping us broadcasting and doing our planning duties. Thank you all.
Yeah, and I would kind of echo what Aaron has already said. I know there's a lot of behind the scenes work that goes into all of that. We really didn't miss a beat in terms of switching over to a virtual space. And it's great to see that we're able to continue to do what we needed to do, even though we're not in person. So thanks to Berkeley City staff for that. Okay, if there's nothing else from anyone, then does anyone have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. I'll take the last one.
Thanks, Matt.
Support.
Okay, Aaron, could you call the roll?
Artis,
Yes.
Dahlin,
Yes.
Kempner,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Trotto,
Yes.
Kapelansky.
Yes. All right, have a good evening, everyone. Matt, we will see you around. Welcome to
everybody.
Daniel. And I will see
Everyone
everyone
have-
in person.
Happy and safe holiday.
Thanks, everybody.
guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
You too.
Bye.
Bye.